Stephanie Bradley, and I'm a veteran of the Secret Space Program, and I served in the German fleet, and not of my own free will. None of us that served in any of these projects were there by our own free will. We were all kidnapped at one point in our early childhood in my generation, and as time went on, they started taking older kids. The excuse was that the adults, when they were subjected to space, went insane because it was too foreign to what they could understand. Their mindset of what was truth was too hardened. And that little kids didn't know the difference, so we wouldn't go insane. Except that wasn't entirely true. A lot of us did. I have no memories from before I was 4 years old. None. I've got photos, so I know I was there and interacted with family. And I've heard stories about my family having sheep that they raised and me throwing a fit when Mom used the wrong nipple on my bottle. But I don't remember it myself. When I was kidnapped at 4, I was mind wiped completely and taken to Langley. And I was in a hospital-like prison for most of the next 5 years. I had a little room that was mine. It was big enough for a cot and a wash basin and a little toilet and a camera that was always watching me. The walls were white, the bedding was white, my pajamas I was in were white. White was the only color I saw. I was in room number 7. So, you know the movie V?
Yeah.
Where the man who was in room number 5 eventually forgot his name and just became 5 and put V on his arm, I think it was. Well, I was like that. I was number 7. And my initial mind fracture was done by being drowned in the closest thing that people would understand is a whirlpool tub that was turned off. I was just shoved into it head first and left there until I inhaled the water. I have a friend who cannot come public that thinks that this was done because when we are in the regen tanks, we have to breathe the fluid. So he thinks that that is the reason that they drowned us, was so we would breathe fluid. But I don't think so. That may have been a side effect of it. But the intention was to fracture our minds so that there would be programmable bits for them to use as separate people with no shared memory. Because when a child goes through trauma, they form alters. I've already reintegrated 28 of these alters, and I still have at least a dozen more. But drowning was the initial steps. And that's really consistent with what's come out from the people that do videos about MK Ultra. They show the videos of people being drowned. And some of the music videos do that. The next thing that they would do was once they had you where you no longer cared if they drowned you or not, then they would start shooting you. They'd shoot you in the heart. They'd shoot you in the middle of the forehead. They'd shoot you in the back. They had a regeneration tank at Langley in those days. I don't know if they still do or not. But they'd shoot you, and then you'd wake up inside the regeneration tank, and you'd be whole again. Well, it didn't take you very long to figure out that death was not an option.
About how many times would you say that you went through that whole process? Can you remember?
I have no idea. It was, I'm almost 62 now, so we're talking 56, 57 years ago. I'm looking at day after day of being in artificial light 24/7. You don't even know what's a day. You're totally disoriented as far as time, and they keep doing this stuff to you. And when they're not doing stuff to you, you're in this room by yourself. There's nobody to talk to. When you are brought into the cafeteria, you're not allowed to talk to anybody. You're not allowed to bond with anybody. There was no affection. They shaved my head because the training involved electrodes on my head. And so they had to be able to access the scalp. So there was no hair. So there was no reason to brush my hair because there wasn't any. I don't remember brushing my teeth. I remember being terrified of the bath. I have a vague memory of bathing being... They probably thought it was a shower, but they were hosing us off. And you'd be naked and in front of a bunch of people that you knew didn't care about you. Nobody talked to me very often, except to demand things. There were ETs there. There were Draco. Not the alphas that are white, but the browns and the greens. There were Draco around. The only being that was ever kind to me there was a Naga that wore a lab coat like she was a doctor. It was kind of disconcerting, even for a child, to be looking at this 9-foot-tall snake being wearing a lab coat. But yeah, she was black with white, and she had the most striking blue eyes, and she was the only being at Langley that was kind to me. I do have a bunch of weird memories from Langley. There was some Christmas festival where they deliberately went through and blocked my memories so I can see the people's feet and legs. But they literally go invisible from the hips up. Everybody in the room, it's like, whoa, they sure didn't want me to identify them. But I can see the Christmas tree in the corner, and I can see all these people in suits, and I know there's food and drink, and they let me have a piece of cake, which was very unusual for them. They generally weren't good to us. And it was a time I was in a dress instead of the white cotton pajamas. And this was I was kidnapped in 1959, so little girls wearing pants was forbidden. That was wearing men's clothes. American society, women didn't wear pants in public until about the mid-70s. So this was, being in pajamas all the time was and then to suddenly be in a dress was like really a special thing. And I don't remember ever being in a dress again, just that one time. Other things they did to us. If you refused an assignment, you would be put into an electric chair and electrocuted. And then put in the regen tank. So turning down an assignment was not acceptable. And assignments would be things like shooting each other, or killing animals with your mind, or remote. It's not exactly remote viewing if it's telepathy involved, but it's along the same lines. You're remote viewing a situation and reading the mind of the person there. And I wasn't good at it. I was better at reading their emotional state, but that wasn't what they wanted. They wanted me to give the words the guy was thinking, and just repeat what I heard, even if I didn't understand it. And they were doing a lot of spying on Russians and Chinese in those days. And I just wasn't good at it, so I was electrocuted several times. There were several trips to Montauk. Now, I know that Stuart Swerdlow says that Montauk started later and that it was all boys. But he hasn't been told the full truth. It started, the time tunnel was operational about 1960, and the first generation of kids that were taken into the SSP all had to survive the time tunnel first, boys and girls. And the girls tended to go multidimensional rather than travel in time. And so the Scientologists that were running the place got really, really mad at me because I would go multidimensional and just leave. They couldn't find me because their computer was set up just for time travel. And they had an incinerator for the kids that came back too crazy to salvage. And they wanted to put me in it, and the brown Draco that was there told them not to chip me instead so that I could be found. So I've been chipped since I was 6 years old. And I only remember one trip that I did that was time, but I know I was there for months, so I know there had to have been more. The one that I remember is going into the tunnel and seeing a general store in the back, and they show the time tunnel with these nice pretty ovals. Well, when it's turned on, they wiggle and they grab at you. And so you have to avoid the wiggle while you're focusing on the target. And the person in the chair can make it go somewhere else if that's what you want to do, which overrides the computer because the chair is set up to be a relay between the psychic ability of the person and the computer. It's a form of cyborg because it's connecting into you. And so you're operating it through your consciousness. And a lot of the tech in the Secret Space program is based on that concept of a human consciousness runs the tech. But so here I am, the 6-year-old kid, and I'm supposed to be going to this general store. And from what I remember of the styles, it was in the 1880s, somewhere in the West. And I was supposed to go, and they had these apples in bushel baskets, wooden ones, and they were on display outside the store. And I was supposed to go steal one of the apples and bring it back. Now, they make it look like this time tunnel trip is just you're there and you're back. And it looks that way to the person in the chair. But to everybody else, just the simple going and coming back takes about 3 weeks. So
is that 3 weeks in the tunnel?
It's the 3 weeks is in the tunnel, but it's not. It doesn't seem like that to the person in the chair. It seems like an hour each way. Mm-hmm. But when you get back, 3 weeks is gone. And that's not counting any time that you spent there. But I was supposed to just go and come back because bald-headed little girls were not common in the 1880s. So, but that would have been an anomaly that would have raised all sorts of flags. So I was supposed to not be seen. And so I came back with this apple, and they said, don't eat it. And I'm like, why? I'm a good to always ask why. And they said, because someone else is going to have to put it back. I'm like, why? Because you'll change the time, the continuum. And it's, oh. I'm like, all right, that sort of half makes sense. So that's one of the things that the people running the time tunnel were trying to do, was figure out what they could change and them still be there. Because when I got back, I had to tell them what was different when I got back about them, so they would know who by something as simple as changing an apple out, what changed. Because they had this thing, they were using the time tunnel to go back in time and change events to give the CIA more power now. Looking back on it, I think that's why Kennedy was killed, was because he was planning to dismantle the CIA. And they were doing all these things to give themselves more power. They really don't have a charter as such, They were told in the 70s to stop interfering with American citizens. They were told to stop MK Ultra. Well, we all know they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
They just changed the name and went underground with it. But when I was there I was there at Langley, which was at that point a CIA installation. I was there from summer 1959 until they sent me to Mars in 1964, with a couple of trips to Montauk in the middle. But they were looking for people who had the talent to be able to go back in time, fit in with the culture, and change things, and then come back. And I guess I'm lucky I didn't meet their criteria for that, because I would go higher dimensional instead. The rings, when they're active, they would form branches off. You would have your main tunnel, and you would have a branch off here and a branch off there, and maybe one above. And if you looked too close at the rings, they would guide you off. So you had to focus on the picture that was in front of you. And sometimes it would change while you were in the tunnel. You know, we're talking about a 6-year-old kid with a short attention span. And I would decide I didn't want to come back. And I got in a lot of trouble for that. But at that point, I realized they weren't going to kill me dead, or at least not leave me that way. I've always been a bit of a rebel.
So did they come and get you?
The Draco did.
Draco did.
The Draco did. The humans did not have the capability, but the Draco came and got me. I remember the man who was running it was so livid that he was ready to toss me into the incinerator, and the Draco stopped him. I remember him saying, "I know she's irritating, but because she can do this, she's worth more than the others."
Now, do you think this Montauk technology may be involved with the time travel aspect of the 20 and back service? You think it's a part of that technology, or is it something completely different?
It's a variation of it. Instead of making a complete time tunnel like they did at Montauk, they have a machine that's about the size of an MRI machine, and you're in it, and you come in one point and you come out where they send you to, which with the 20 and back program, they send you back to the time and place where they got you. So your clothes are still fresh from when they stripped you and sent you. It was amazing because they still had the pajamas that my mom had made for me.